Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 58 of the Memorial Memo, KSR's Kentucky Women's Basketball Podcast. Glad to be on this week, of course, rolling right along here. It doesn't feel like that long ago. We literally just got the show started. Now we're talking about episode 58, and I'm just so glad to be on because we're approaching the home stretch of the season, and, unfortunately, I don't have a win to talk about coming on here. But we do have some potential wins lined up, so that's always exciting. But something that I really like to value and appreciate because it wasn't too long ago when I was an athlete, talking about senior day. So can't wait to get into that. But first, as you all know, got to begin the episode with the usual rankings and such. Kentucky stays put at number 16 in the AP poll this week, after falling to Vandy. Now, like I said last week, Kentucky has more important things to worry about than the AP poll, but I am glad to see, it feels like some sense got knocked into the voters' heads a little bit this week in terms of, Kentucky lost to this top 5 team by 2 on the road. Oh, we don't have to knock them down, right? It's not like we were sitting there at number 2 in the country. We were already below Vandy in the rankings, so it makes sense, and there's nothing to worry about there. Kentucky's still number 16 in the net rankings as well. When you go look at Kentucky's quad records, the only change from last time, of course, is the loss to Vanderbilt. So again, all of Kentucky's losses are in quad 1, except for Georgia, who is number 34 in the net, so it's right outside of being a quad 1 loss, right? So again, Kentucky, did they lose some games they probably shouldn't have? Yeah, probably so. But then again, when you sit there and you look at that resume, you can say to yourself, well, their losses, maybe they shouldn't have lost them, just knowing how good this Kentucky team can be. But, they're not sitting there in quad 3 and quad 4 with a really bad loss on the resume, or at least just yet, assuming something, hopefully nothing horrible happens against Auburn early in the SEC tournament. In the latest bracketology, Kentucky is still a 4 seed, still in position to host in the NCAA tournament. Of course, that's the big goal for right now until we get to that point. And then, of course, it'll be about chasing a championship. But until then, it's really about, is Kentucky going to be in position to have the first 2 rounds in Lexington? And so far, they are in that position. When you look at the latest bracketology, you can see Kentucky right there. First round, they'll be projected to play Georgia Southern, and then second round, most likely Minnesota, right? So, like I said, that's a good Minnesota team that could sneak up on you. They've done really well in the Big Ten, but Kentucky, point being, main point that matters here, in position to host still. Now, I want to take a quick second to, like we did last week, look ahead to the SEC tournament a little bit, because we already know the position Kentucky's in because of the Tiani Key injury, because of the games they lost during that stretch, right? When you look at the SEC standings, Kentucky's currently 10th in the SEC. Georgia and Alabama picked up wins in their last game, so Kentucky is down to 10th. Right, they're projected to finish 9th in the SEC with an 8-8 conference record, according to Bart Torvik. And for me, when you look at the SEC standings, the number one thing to take note of is, okay, you're not ever going to jump Tennessee because even if they lose out, they're still 8-8. If you win out, you're 8-8, and they have the tiebreaker on you, so you can't jump Tennessee. But you could hope to get to the 8. And, of course, to me, the main thing with the 8 seed, now I guess if Ole Miss loses out, you could get the 7 seed, theoretically, because Tennessee will move up. But just talking practically speaking here, realistically, I think Kentucky should be striving for the 8 right now. And I think the biggest thing with that is, of course, you see on the SEC tournament schedule, as it is every year, the 8 seed gets a bye in the SEC tournament, whereas the 9 seed doesn't, right? It's like I said last week, you're going to be playing in the early game no matter what. If you're the 8 or 9, It's just a matter of basically, do you have to play 0-16 in the SEC Arkansas on Wednesday? And of course, you're saying, well, Phoenix, that's an easy game. They should win. Yeah, but you don't know if someone is going to get injured or, I mean, it is, the ball is tipped for a reason. The games are played for a reason. Kentucky could lose, right? So I sit and think about the Kentucky, Georgia, Alabama race, right? Who's going to finish, eighth, ninth, and 10th in the SEC, right? And these are the remaining schedules that we need to consider. Now, obviously, we know about Kentucky. Kentucky plays at Auburn tomorrow night, and then, of course, Sunday back home, senior day against number 3 South Carolina. Okay, so if you're a Kentucky fan, obviously you're just going to root for Kentucky to win anyways. Okay, so that's easy. Alabama, I don't think we have to worry too much about. If you're watching, you see on the far right hand side of your screen, they play at Vandy tomorrow night, and then against Texas at home on Sunday. I think Alabama goes 0-2 there, right? I think Kentucky goes 1-1. I think they beat Auburn, lose to South Carolina, right? Realistically speaking. And I don't see Alabama beating Vandy or Texas, so I don't think Alabama's the team to worry about here, right? Even though they have the tiebreaker, I don't think, I think they'll go 7-9 in the SEC, so I don't think they're the team to worry about here. But Georgia, to me, the last team you lost to before you got Tiani Key back, you lost to Georgia at home, 72-67. They're the team, to me, to worry about a little bit. Because they're probably going to lose tomorrow night when they play at Texas, Georgia. But Sunday, March 1st, this is the game that we all need to really keep an eye on outside of Kentucky, South Carolina. Georgia against Florida at home. We all need to be really, really big Florida Gators fans that day. I know that should be a sentence that is illegal to say out loud, but Florida, they're not going to mess with you in the SEC standings. But you need Georgia to go 0-2, right? You need Georgia to lose to Texas. You need Georgia to lose to Florida. And, Florida, they put up fights against Kentucky. They put up a good fight against South Carolina. I think they kept it close against Oklahoma for a long time. So Florida is a team that can get you. Like, they can bite you in the butt. That needs to happen to Georgia for me if Kentucky is going to get the 8 seed, going to get a bye in the SEC tournament. Otherwise, I think Kentucky will be playing in that early game on Wednesday, which, of course, again, I think Kentucky should win that game if they do so, play in it. But at the same time, you just want to try to avoid that. So the rooting guide for this week, heading into the SEC tournament, obviously, you root for Kentucky to win no matter what. I don't think we have to worry about Alabama too much, but obviously just kind of keep an eye on them, see if they lose, if they go 0-2. But Georgia, March 1st, when they play Florida, we need to be really big Florida Gator fans that day. Now, talking about the Vanderbilt game that just occurred this past Sunday, I had the privilege of going down there, and poor Tyler Thompson, of course, she lives in Nashville. She saw the brunt of me on KS Board talking about how trashy and garbage and horrible that Memorial Gymnasium is, and I still think it's among the bottom of the SEC venues that I've personally been to. But I will say I do appreciate the historic feel of Memorial Gymnasium. I hate absolutely everything about the Crow's Nest. Why is it 10,000 feet in the sky? Why is there not a single elevator in the building? Why is there no AC? Why is Memorial Gymnasium 500 degrees? It's like people used to talk about the old Memorial Coliseum before they just renovated it. Like it's old and disgusting and hot and just a big mess. Like, that's Memorial Gymnasium to me, even though I do appreciate the historic feel of the building, Otherwise, it's just a big dump to me. And the loss to Vandy, on Sunday. I posted this after the game, I believe, on social media, but I still feel it the same way. I'm not discouraged by the loss in terms of like you lost that game. It didn't kill your resume or anything. You kept it. You led for over 30 minutes against the top 5 team, and it just slipped from your hands at the end, right? Aubrey Galvin makes the go-ahead shot with 7 seconds to go. But that's just the nature of the game. I hate to get on here and sound like the game didn't matter, right? Because if you won that game, it almost would have propelled you to for sure being hosting in the NCAA tournament. But look, that is a game, and I think I said it before even, it has little negative consequence. It really does, and that's how the South Carolina game is going to be too. With Auburn, like they're horrible. Like you need to beat them. I just felt bad because, again, like I said, I'm not discouraged in the long term by that loss or anything, but man, in the short term, you saw these kids fight all game long, and they came up just short. I want to give a quick shout out to Clara Strack, who had 17 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 blocks. Her third one of the day, she reset her own single-season Kentucky blocks record, right? So to do that 2 years in a row, pretty special stuff. Last year, she won SEC Defensive Player of the Year. I don't know if that's going to happen this year. Madison Francis down at Mississippi State is putting up similar numbers, maybe even a little bit better this year. But Clara Strack, congratulations on that moment, on that milestone, even though I'm sure she'd give it back for a win against the Commodores. And then Amelia Hassett, who, man, I thought she shot Kentucky into that game, right? I thought she did such a good job of, she went 5 of 12 from 3, had 15 points, 8 rebounds. I thought Amelia Hassett did such a good job of putting herself in position to score offensively. I think throughout this season, we've seen how, sometimes when you don't have the ball offensively, you can kind of just get lost in the offense. And, you can be in the wrong spot. You can, for Amelia, a lot of times it's being in the corner. It's being out on the wing a little bit. With her, I thought on Sunday she did a really good job of, okay, I know where I need to be in order to spread this floor, in order to catch the ball, shoot it, and make it, right? I know where I need to be in order to, make this offense run smoother. And I thought she did a great job of that. And again, 15 points, 5 3-pointers made. You'll certainly take that every night from her. Asia Boone got off to a hot start and then kind of went cold towards the end of the game, but I still was, for the most part, pretty pleased with her effort. 13 points, again, just 3 of 10 3-point shooting. And then Toni Morgan played all 40 minutes of the game. I think she kind of had to in this case. 10 points, 5 of 12 shooting, 9 assists, 2 steals to her name. And then just to keep going along here, Tiani Key had 10 points, 8 rebounds, and steal and a block each. So, for Kentucky, that was a very unfortunate game to lose. And it's like I said before the game. And again, I don't want to sound like I think I'm a genius, because I'm not. Just an observation I made before the game, right, based off the last Vandy game, and I think it kind of carried true in this one. I said, look, Michaela Blakes is going to have her 30 to 40 points, and she had 35, right? You had to limit everyone else to their averages pretty much to win that game, and they did for the most part. Ayanna Mitchell, who got the start in that game, right? I think she normally starts. What am I saying? But, she had 12 points, a little bit more than what she normally gets, and then it was really Aubrey Galvin who had 20. She averages 12.6. She's the one who killed you, obviously, with the go-ahead dagger at the end. So, it's unfortunate because Kentucky did... to beat a top 5 team, you have to really do everything right and then get a little lucky, right? I think Kentucky did just about everything right and got a little unlucky at the end with the Galvin shot. At the end of the day, I'm not super demoralized by the loss. I just kind of feel bad for this group because they fought so hard. But the loss really doesn't do anything for your goals in the end of the day. So I think There's no reason for you to hang your head after that game. I want to give a quick shout just real fast to our friends over at Rollback. You can change the game with Rollback, a proud partner of KSR. Get the best fit and the best feel with their incredibly comfortable activewear, from polos and quarter zips to shorts and Delta Performance pants. You will look good and feel good with Rollback. Use promo code KSR for 20% off your first purchase at rollback.com. And now that this Vandy game has taken place, right, you beat Ole Miss, which is the win you really needed to get. Unfortunately, you lose to Vandy. Well, now we have to start looking at tomorrow night, which is against Auburn, right? Pretty similar story to the men's team, the men's Auburn team, that is, where they're just not very good, right? Sitting at 14-14 overall, 3-11 in the SEC on the year. Auburn has lost 8 of their last 9 games, right? They recently, I think it was not their last game, but the game before, got a 71-58 win over Missouri. Their last time out against Georgia, they lost 74-52, right? Auburn, like I said, they're not the greatest team. They have a first-year head coach in Larry Vickers, who I actually really liked what he did at Norfolk State. You got to see them. I got to see them late last season around this time of year, and not in person on like the TV. And I liked the way, I just liked the way Coach Vickers ran things. You know what I mean? Like I like his style, and I personally think he'll get that program going in a couple of years if they give him funding and support. It's just this, year one in the SEC, pretty rough for most head coaches, right? And then you go look at some of his key players. You go look at, who he has going out to battle with him. Harrison Koulibaly averages 10.5 points, 3 rebounds, and 1.9 steals per game. If you'll notice, you look across this stat sheet, you don't see a ton of Auburn players that produce a whole lot. And that's the thing, right? There's a reason why they're 14-14 and 3-11, right? Their highest scorer per game is 10.5 points per game. Like, you go look at Auburn's as a team stats, and they shoot just 28.2% from 3, 39.2% overall from the field, and they only average 60 points per game, right? Auburn's just not great, right? Like, they're not that fantastic at all. And then Caitlin Duhon, 10 points per game, 4.4 rebounds per game, 3.2 steals per game. Katie Lay, 9 points, 4.7 rebounds, 1.3 steals. And then a guard, Maya Pettigrew, 8.5 points, 2 rebounds, and shoots 31.3% from 3. Unfortunately for Auburn, one of their better shooters from beyond the arc, right? This is an Auburn team who has struggled mightily all season long, right? It goes without saying. The record shows for itself. Like, they started the year 8-0, and they had a good win over Cal, and you kind of thought to yourself, oh, like, is Coach Vickers going to get them rolling in year one? Hasn't quite been the case. They had a 3-game losing streak after that, and then SEC play has just been a smack to the face, right? It's just been a rough go. They split their season series with Florida. They beat Alabama at home. Like, if you're Alabama, that loss is kind of killing you right now, right? And then, like I said, not their last game, but the time before, beat Missouri on the road 71-58. So, with this Auburn game, I think it's pretty simple. It's like I've said for a week or two now. You just have to beat Auburn, and I think you have to make it to Friday in the SEC tournament wherever you're at, right? So, step one tomorrow night is beat Auburn, okay? I think the goal for Kentucky, look, it's just not a great team. I think if you're Kentucky, you look to do what you do well. I think you look to, if they're going to try to shoot threes, make them beat you from 3. If they start making them, then you run them off the 3-point line. And then, you do what you've done all season long, which is vacuum people in and contest at the rim, right? I think Kentucky wins this one fairly easily. I have Kentucky winning 76-54, and Tony Morgan is my MVP. Now, one quick note before I go over to South Carolina, right? Because that's the next big game that we got to talk about. I want to talk about Senior Day because, for one, like I said when we started this episode, Senior Day is, for one, I hope we can make what I'm about to do a tradition on this show. But for two, Senior Day to me in general is an important day, right? And I'm not making this about me. I'm not making these girls' Senior Day about me. That's not what I'm doing. But, I remember when I played in high school, and that last time you take the home floor. Hopefully, it's not the last time for these girls. Hopefully, they get home court advantage in the NCAA tournament. But you just, that feeling of you put in so much work and the blood, sweat, and tears, literally, right, into all of it, and just that last big hurrah. It's a big meaningful day for these kids. I remember last year, you could see Kenny Brooks trying to hold it together through the Senior Day festivities, and Deja Lawrence is crying her eyes out. Today, actually, which this is just a little sneak peek preview. If we roll, I'll have something on the site either Saturday night or Sunday morning. I got to figure that out. We talked to the seniors, not just me at KSR. It was a big media thing at Memorial today. And, you just sit and listen to all of these seniors talk about how much Kentucky means to them, how much the college experience in general means to them, Big Blue Nation, Kenny Brooks, all these things. And you think about someone like an Amelia Hassett who comes across the world, right? And Kenny and the staff take a chance on her, right? And it's been one of the most rewarding experiences of her life. Think about a Tony Morgan who, enters the transfer portal. And, yeah, she's highly sought out, but someone's got to take a chance on her. Same thing with Tiani Key, right? Think about Josie Gilvin, a Kentucky kid who grew up a UK fan, right? She's at WKU, and she has this defined role there where, okay, I know I'm the girl here. I know I'm the one, right? She decides I want to live in a more competitive space. I want to fulfill my dream of being a Kentucky Wildcat, and then she, makes that leap to Kentucky. Think about Jordan Obie, who last season transferring to Kentucky, she suffers this injury before the season starts, and she's itching for a year to get on the basketball court, and it finally culminates into what I think has been a pretty solid senior season. There's been some ups and downs mixed in there, and you could say that for all of them. But there's been some ups and downs mixed in, but, Jordan has just battled, been the ultimate teammate, and, you just watch these kids talk about how much all this stuff means to them, and it's so special. And speaking of Jordan, and I don't want to speak too much on it because I wasn't there at the time Jordan was talking about it, but I caught the tail end of it because, he talked to these 5 seniors, and we're all spaced out, right? It's not a normal, not everybody's squeezed at a table. They're all spread out. And I just wrapped up talking to Tony Morgan, I believe it was. And then you look over, and Jordan's crying, right? Jordan Obie is like Deja Lawrence at last year's Senior Day crying, talking about how much this stuff means to her. And, again, that's why, I hope, whether it's fans, UK, whoever, I hope they don't sit here and think, man, it seems like Phoenix is just out to get us. Right? It seems like, man, Phoenix is just so dang critical. Like, he hates us for whatever reason. I love these kids to death. I've had the special privilege of getting to cover these kids for some of them for 2 years, right? Most of them for 1. And I take great honor in that because I have the privilege of getting to tell their stories of, when I go to games, I'll see someone's mom, one of these kids' moms, and they'll be like, hey, thank you for everything you do. Thank you for the articles. Thank you for the podcast. Thank you for putting a spotlight on my kid, right? Or I'll tell them a story about I had an interaction with the fan talking about, man, Tony Morgan's my favorite player, and you should see the smile on Tony Morgan's parents' face whenever I tell them that, right? It's the little things like that. Or, last year's SEC tournament, I'm just trying to get in the arena, and I get stopped by this group of people. And at first, you kind of want to roll your eyes and be like, "Oh gosh," Not that I don't want to talk to you all, but I'm trying to get in the arena, right? And then it's Amelia Hassett's family who had just come from across the world, and they're like, "Phoenix, we watch every episode of your podcast," which first of all makes me think, "Oh God, what did I say about Amelia?" But they're like, "Thank you for talking about this team and Amelia," right? People on Josie Gilvin's side of things who are like, man, thank you for all the coverage you gave her, right, in the off season and talking about her transitioning to Kentucky, right? It's Jordan Obi's family. A number of them are on my social media feed, liking my stuff all the time, right? It's for me, it's the impact that I somehow make on these kids and their families that I will cherish forever, because that's the ultimate reason why I'm in this profession, is because, one, what the heck else am I going to do? But number two, I have the awesome, awesome privilege of getting to tell these kids stories, of getting to make a positive impact on people, which I'll never take for granted, and I really do truly appreciate. But again, enough about me, because I've said a lot about me. But I want to talk about the specific 5 seniors, right? This is a This is a personal thank you, if that's what you want to call it, to each 5 of them. So I'll start with the list I got going on there. So we start with Tiani Key, who, man, against Louisville, she just has her best games, right? And, Tiani Key, Amelia Hassett, and we'll count Jordan Obi too, get to retire their Kentucky careers 2-0 against Louisville. And that's something we haven't been able to say for a group of seniors in a long time. That's a special thing. But Tiani Key, I think the thing I'll remember most about her is she just brought this winning attitude and swagger to the team when you didn't know if they had it, right? When she was out this year, you saw it clearly. You saw how badly Kentucky needed her. And I just talking to people behind the scenes, even when Tiani Key was out, she was the most vocal, supportive, all of these things, and trying to rally this team together. And even when I'm watching this team, right, while Tiani Key's out, and I look across the court, and I look on the sidelines, other than, Lindsey Hicks and Josh Peterson, who's standing up, clapping, cheering the loudest? It's Tiani. She's the one screaming her head off, clapping on the sidelines for this team. And I think that's something that is really special about her is, she's the ultimate team player, but at the same time is the heart and soul, I think, of this basketball team. Amelia Hassett, who, again, took a chance on this whole college basketball thing, coming across the world to JUCO, and then ends up at Kentucky. And I was talking to her today, and you could tell, she didn't get emotional like Jordan did, but you could tell how special it has been for her to be in Lexington these past 2 years, right? Amelia, I think we've all at times been really hard on her because we've seen the flashes of what she can be, and sometimes you see the games where she's 0 of 5 from 3, right, and only scores 2 points, right, something like that. But something you can never take away from Amelia Hassett is how hard she worked. You cannot take away the fact that, man, she is going to go battle for you on the glass. And we talked about Tiani Key playing at her best in the Louisville games. I remember last season specifically, they won that game because of Amelia Hassett. Georgia Amore, she had 8 turnovers in that game. Kentucky was down for most of that game. And Amelia Hassett's rebounding and free throw shooting gave Kentucky that win, right? This season, she has emerged, she ended the last year sick, by the way, playing through sickness all of through the late parts of last season. I think it was walking pneumonia she had. And she comes into this season, slumps at times, sure, gets hot and cold, but man, she can hit some shots, and she puts you in these positions to win these games. And as we saw against Vandy, you don't always win all of those games. But, man, there's a lot of games that Kentucky has won that they just don't win without Amelia Hassett. All right, Tony Morgan. Man, I don't know about you all. After last season and Georgia Amor's gone and we got Madden Greenway next season, I bet we all kind of just thought after last season, well, we're going to have a dip at point guard. We're not going to be that great at point guard this year. And Kenny Brooks gets Tony Morgan, and I don't want to take credit for thinking, or I don't want to take credit for being right, but I figured from the get-go, okay, that's a really good get, because I figured Tony Morgan fit this team, like the mold of this team, better than someone like a Georgia Amor would. I think they needed a pass-first kind of player, and I think Georgia Amor at times was score-first a lot of the time. But Tony Morgan, man, what a special kid. Again, I've had the privilege of meeting her parents, wonderful people, of course. Think about the community service stuff that Tony's done, and that doesn't get talked about enough. Think about the Ronald McDonald House, and there's a lot of other things that slip in my mind. I think earlier today she was named All-SEC Community Team or something like that, Community Service Team or something, which is phenomenal. That's great. And, talk to her, either with a camera in her face or not. You can tell she is so thankful for being here, right? From a basketball perspective, she's gotten to be this incredible point guard, and she's going to get drafted in the WNBA most likely and have what I would think be a great career there. But you can just tell from an off the court perspective, she loves Big Blue Nation. She loves this place. And I wouldn't be surprised if one day, I don't know if coaching is in her future. I don't know if that's something she wants to do. But I wouldn't be surprised if she comes back home to get to Lexington, right, every now and then. I think Tony, surreal is the word that she's used a lot. You can just tell she loves this place. And, of course, you talk about the on-the-court stuff. I mean, her most iconic moment that we're all going to talk about for years is her game winner at LSU, right? Tying the single-game assist record with Patty Jo Hedges, right? Breaking Georgia Amor's single-season assist record that I personally, I love Madden Greenway to death. I don't know if Madden's going to break that during her 4 years here, so I think that record's going to stand for at least the next several years for Tony. She, there's been so many, with Georgia here, it's like there's been so many good point guards here now all of a sudden. But Tony is truly one of the best to ever do it in the Kentucky uniform. And I hope she knows that. And I hope she knows that she's a lot of people's favorite player. And more than anything, she's a rock star. And for me, the part that I like to take away from Tony is that she's just an awesome person. Obviously with the community service stuff, but you can just tell how much she loves this stuff. Jordan Obi, who had it was like a rough go last year, right? She gets hurt, and she, again, itching just to play and get back and compete. And all of a sudden this year, you can see the impact that she makes, right? And again, up and down like the rest of them. But there, when she is in the game, for one, you got somebody who can rebound the ball, right? You know that. But she can battle down low. And look, I get it. We've all seen it. She's not going to make every layup. But she brings this work ethic, this relentlessness to this team that I think really goes a long way for this group. And again, you talk about this stuff meaning a lot to these kids. It's like I said, I think she was talking about Josh Peterson specifically. And I don't know if it's because of talking about Josh. Again, I wasn't over there at the time. I don't know if it was just all the senior day talk we did or her talking about Josh specifically. She started bawling her eyes out, right? And that's how much, this stuff means to these kids. And again, Jordan is someone who I'll appreciate because, again, she didn't play last year, but she helped build, by just being around and absorbing everything and doing what she can. Jordan Obi helped establish the culture here and the standard here, which is something that, under this Kenny Brooks regime is something we should all really appreciate. And then Josie Gilvin, lastly, who, look, like I said, you came to Kentucky and your role has completely changed, right? You went from being the girl at WKU to a lot of the times you're on the bench. But, the moments she has been on the court, I'll say it, like when she's on the court, you're going to get the hustle. You're going to get everything that you want. Look, I don't mean to make too many like Kentucky kid references because I know the last one, that was a whole thing. But, she's a Kentucky kid, Kentucky fan, getting to live that dream. But, she is someone who, it's just the nature of being a Kentucky kid. A lot of kids like her and look up to her, right? She had, and even just outside of the Kentucky part of it, she had an outstanding college career, right? Was an all-conference defensive player at WKU. I hope, I've seen some discourse about, as Josie Gilvin's time at Kentucky, blah, blah, blah. And that's only a question she can answer. But I would hope Josie Gilvin knows, and I'm sure she does know, like she played an important role on this team, even if it didn't totally translate to, all the stats in the scorebook, right? She came in, she bought into the system, which is the big thing for her, I think, and has just been a big support. And, from everyone I've talked to, is super loved. Everyone loves Josie Gilvin to death, and I think you can see it. I asked her today, like, what are some of your favorite moments of being in a Kentucky uniform? And granted, she hasn't had the most playing time as everybody else, but she's like, man, I just love, like, the celebration, right? Like, she talks about how, man, me and Gabby celebrating these wins together, or me and Gabby, like, on the bench, and we're like, woo, right? Like, that stuff. Again, a storied college career, great high school career leading up to it at Sacred Heart. Josie Gilvin, a fantastic player, and I know her role at Kentucky shrinked some, but at the end of the day, she's still a special kid, and all five of them, again, I hope we all look at them in a positive light when their time at Kentucky comes to an end, and especially on Sunday, I hope people show up, support these group of girls, because again, Tiani Kia-Milias at Jordan Obi helped lay that foundation in year one. Tony Morgan had been the ultimate bridge between Georgia and Madden, but on her own right has been completely fantastic. And Josie Gilvin, I think, personally, is kind of the representation of the Kentucky dream, right? So, moving on to South Carolina, the actual game itself beyond that. And like I said, I wanted to do that because, again, senior day stuff means a lot to me because I went through a senior day and I know how much that meant to me. So that's why we did that. And if I have the privilege to do this podcast for the next several years, we're going to do it every year whether you like it or not. Except I don't think people are going to be too opposed to it. So when we look at South Carolina, we all think the same thing. This is going to be a very hard game to win. Right? Some people write us off as a loss already. And, you just look at this Gamecocks team. And I remember last year when Kentucky played this game on the road, Kenny was asked something about how good their team is. And he's like, well, they got McDonald's All-Americans up and down the roster. And people took that as some kind of slight against them. But it's just a fact. Like, he's like, I think he's praising them. Like, he's like, this is how good their team is. And he's absolutely right. And that is, again, still the case this season. South Carolina is 27-2 overall, 13-1 in the SEC. Going to be a lot of people's picks to win the national title at the end of the year. I would like to think, of course, UConn and UCLA are ranked ahead of them in the AP poll, but can you ever count out Don Staley and the Gamecocks? I'm sure they'll almost certainly be in 99% of people's Final Fours, right? And their last time out, Kentucky beat Ole Miss by 17, and that felt like a surprise. Well, how about an 85-48 win against Ole Miss? Don Staley and those Gamecocks absolutely have been rolling. Their only 2 losses on the year, and you see the 13-1 SEC record, and you're going to think I sound stupid, but give me a moment. You know, they're 27-2, 13-1 in the SEC. Well, their losses are to Texas, an SEC team, and Oklahoma, an SEC team. And, of course, local Phoenix, wouldn't they be, 12-2 in the SEC instead of 13-1? No, because that Texas game that they lost was all the way back in November in the Players Era tournament, which is a whole different thing. And I don't know the logistics of it, but regardless, did not count towards the SEC standings, and that's how that played out. So you look at South Carolina's key players, and look, when I say key players, I mean their top 4. Because if we're talking about actual key players, I could talk about everybody on the dang roster. But we're going to go with the top 4 in terms of scoring, because Raven Johnson, their point guard, one of the best ones in the country, could very well be on this list. But again, when I talk about key players, I'm talking about main scorers in this instance. So we got a forward, Joyce Edwards. A lot of people's pick for SEC Player of the Year. A lot of people's pick to be a first-team All-American. 20.1 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game, 2.4 assists per game. Tanaya Latson, who was last year she was the nation's leading scorer at Florida State. Now at South Carolina, 14.8 points per game, 3.4 assists per game, and 3 rebounds per game. Medina Okot, who was at Mississippi State last season, has really elevated her game, become a first-round WNBA draft pick, 13.4 points per game, 10.6 rebounds per game, 1.7 blocks per game, and one of the best three-point shooters in the country. One of my favorite players to just watch play in general, Tessa Johnson, 13.1 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 45.5% from beyond the arc. When you look at South Carolina, again, you look at their whole roster, and they're great. If you all remember Alicia Tornabees, we talked about her, the girl who could dunk that visited for the Purdue game. Kentucky didn't end up getting her. Well, she's at South Carolina now, right? And she is all the way down that list of players, right? Only averages 4.5 points per game, but is still really great. Agat McKeer, who Kentucky recruited, averaging 6.3 points and 3.8 rebounds per game. She's someone who's really good. And that's the thing. There's the South Carolina kids, and this happens with UConn too. Their roster is so deep and they're so good, their stats aren't as good because the production's spread out. They average 87.3 points per game as a unit, 42.7 rebounds, 18 assists, 10 steals. They shoot 37.9% from 3, 51.2% overall. When you're 27-2, this is going to be the case, and this is especially the case with a Dawn Staley team. They really do everything well. There's not really anything that they don't do well. So, if you're Kentucky, obviously, you look to do the things you do well, but at the same time, I think if you're Kentucky, you've kept it close against teams that you thought were bad matchups, right? You kept it close against Texas for 35 minutes, kept it close against Vandy both games right until the end. You beat Oklahoma, you beat Louisville, you beat, who am I letting slip my mind? Oklahoma, LSU. You have these great wins on your resume. You beat Ole Miss. That's not quite the same, though. You can win this game. This is not a write-off loss. That's not what this is. I know for 99% of the teams in the country, it is when you suit up against South Carolina. For Kentucky, it's not. Don't get me wrong. A lot has to go right for Kentucky to win this game, right? They probably need a little fortune in their favor, a little senior day magic, but it's not impossible for Kentucky to win this game. Now, I say that. My prediction, I've got South Carolina winning, and I do think they'll open the game up, and I do think they'll win 78-59, right? That's my score prediction. I have South Carolina winning by 19. Look, I hope I'm dead wrong. I hope for some ungodly reason Kenny Brooks is listening to this right now, writes that number down, throws it in my face in the post-game press conference, okay? South Carolina's a great team. I just think they'll win that game And listen, we've seen a lot of great teams lose to South Carolina by 20 points before and end up being okay. All right? I think that's just going to be the case here. They're a great team, even though it's at home. I'll have Tiani Key as my MVP on Senior Day, and that's going to wrap things up for this episode of the Memorial Memo. So, if you like this episode, like, comment, subscribe. As far as the comments go, first of all, call me an idiot for thinking Kentucky would ever lose to a team, right? Even if it's South Carolina. Go in the comments and, for these 5 seniors, what are you most thankful for? I asked them that too. What are you most thankful for your time in Kentucky? Great answers across the board. Again, I'm hoping to bring you all a long-form article or something like that. Like I said, either Saturday night, Sunday morning, whenever I can, right, whenever it makes sense to. But in general, what are your thoughts about Kentucky in this season? What do you think they need to do to host, right? All of those things. We have 58.7K subscribers here on the KSR YouTube channel. Get us up to 60K. You know why? Because Stephen Peak would really, really appreciate that. And what better to do in 2026 than make my boy Stephen Peak happy? So, thank you all for tuning in to this episode of the Memorial Memo. I appreciate it so much. Thanks for sticking with us through the end. Hopefully Kentucky goes 2-0 this week. All of that SEC tournament stuff. We're the 8th seed. We're good. Hopefully Phoenix looks like an idiot because he thought Kentucky's going to lose by 20. And we're all happy and dancing next week when we're previewing the women's SEC tournament in Greenville, South Carolina. So, I'm Phoenix Stevens. This has been episode 58 of the Memorial Memo. Again, thank you all so much. And until next time, peace out and go Cats.